Coming to, when we talk about tools in product management, I think many of you probably are also studying with the Pragmatic, and you would know that product management is an extremely cross-functional role, right? And you actually have product managers coming with a very diverse set of backgrounds. Many of them would have done lateral movements, let's say from design, technology, project management, maybe even sales, and probably from customer success or customer support. So number one, it's a very cross-functional role. It's a very behavioral role. Second thing, I would say, given the nature of cross-functional role that we have, we invariably have huge set of stakeholders. And when you have huge set of stakeholders, that means that is the level of coordination, artifacts that you kind of are constantly creating or sharing or are getting, right? So what exactly, depending upon the nature of the product that you're working upon, customer segment, the maturity of your organization in terms of the product management function, there will be a lot of different elements of interactions, especially that you have with a variety of functions, which could be your cross functions, as well as also with the people. So again, coming back to this, if your organization is a very matured product first organizations, usually there will be a lot of processes in place which would talk about that what we can do in order to maximize the day-to-day work, not only for a product manager, but rather every other BU and rather every other role can have it very efficiently and very effectively. Right. And in that context, of course, each one of us use tools which are provided to us by our organizations, by virtue of our organizations, or the set of tools that are available for free, and we are kind of comfortable, and we see a wider acceptance from the ecosystems. That means other designers and probably other team members are also kind of okay to use it, which helps in the shares and collaborations. Or it could be just for our own getting our work done effectively on a day-to-day basis to be on top of the things that we use. So we'll talk about a variety of those things. Now, given that I'm kind of sharing that, that doesn't mean that I have used all of them. I have definitely not used all of them. And especially in the SaaS world today, there are definitely a lot of new names that I hear almost, I can say, every month. But yes, definitely I have used many of them. And at the same time, this was a poll which I ran a few weeks back, and I kind of got it more as a curated list from people who have been using some of those products. So that's what I'm going to kind of touch upon. Now, before I kind of jump into this and unpack this toolkit list, let me just quickly talk about what does a product manager do. Now, definitely, as I talked about, that depending upon which life cycle stage your product is in, you will be doing one or the other things. If you are in a discover, so PMs are definitely very busy people. They have to, from the side that they have to create the big picture, that they have to do the product strategy. And for that, there is definitely a lot of grounds up work, which covers in a lot of things around your customer discovery, or what we call as market research, doing prototyping, talking to the customers, to the time if you are into, let's say, designing or building your MVP, so creating wireframes, to stakeholder management, or as interesting as presenting your business case to your executive leadership to get that budget, or presenting it to your investors, to the time when you get into product planning to product execution, where you are actually building a team, you are actually doing the product development, you are sharing, constantly doing prioritizing. This is definitely one of the key things. So there is a variety of things that you would be doing depending upon what stage of your product development stage you are in. So in this case, imagine the constant context switching that is happening for these product managers, and a variety of artifacts or a variety of softwares that we are using in order to get these work done, right? So how do we, in a day-to-day life, I mean, this is I would just say a very, very small list of things for all the work that I'm probably doing in my, what I talked about in the previous slide. There are surveys that you're doing in. So that means there is just so much of data that is coming your way, whether it is in the form of qualitative, quantitative data that needs to be looked at. There is so much of industry report, whether you talk about some kind of a research that you did, or there is a industry report like a Gartner report, or there are that needs to be synthesized, that needs to be interpreted and built. The customer insights need to be built. Or there is the whole, once you have finalized that what is that you're going to build, and you have created those user stories, and you are constantly doing back and forth with your engineering team saying that, hey, this is the Jira ticket for the bug, this is the Jira ticket for the new development, this is the Jira ticket for the new technology initiatives that we have. So the Jira tickets are not only from that perspective, but also, let's say, if there are tons of feedback or customer issues that are being reported. So there is a whole paradigm of Jira tickets that is coming from your sales teams, coming from your customer support team, saying that this needs a priority to get into your next planning. Versus, of course, there are tons and tons of documents and PPTs and sheets, whether it is for our leadership or whether it is to share the requirement with some partner teams or downstream teams, or you are creating your PRDs, you're creating your MRDs that needs to be looked at. And definitely here, I think in the last few years, we have definitely leveraged a lot on all the Microsoft suite of products or the Google suite of products. Then there are the emails, right? So it's not only in terms of the documents that come over to us in the collaborative way, but there are tons and tons of emails that needs to be interpreted, because communication is again a very, very strong or a major area, whether it is verbal communication or the written communication that a product manager needs to handle. And then there are those umpteen number of meetings that we attend where there are constantly decisions being made, choices being made, and we need to share the MOMs, right? And there are many, many more artifacts. So I'm not even kind of saying that this is a finite list, but on a daily basis, there are so much of artifacts created, exchanged, that we kind of look into. So the idea here is that how am I going to be on top of this? How am I going to ensure that I do not miss the critical pieces of information? And how can I, as a product manager, is able to be on top of these things? Now, before we get into this, I probably want to kind of, just going back to what we talked about, the various stages of our product life cycle that we are involved in. I probably want to spend some time over here. And this is also very critical to kind of tying it up to the various set of tools that we may use and how we can probably see a lot of overlap over here. So when we start a product idea, let's say we're starting from a product idea, this is what I typically call as our opportunity backlog, which is where we are getting inputs. What could be that next big feature that we want to build? What are those little bugs that needs to be fixed? What are those labels that need to be changed? What is the font that needs to be changed? Which is basically, let's say, constantly coming feedbacks and suggestions, which are coming from our customers, which are coming from our variety of stakeholders. There are hackathons that are happening. There are, in-product customer feedback or probably reviews and ratings that are coming in, where we are constantly getting these feedbacks and suggestions. And of course, and the ideas are coming from those hackathons and, some brainstorming conversations that we have been doing, from where we are generating new ideas for the next big thing. And then there are a lot of these moonshot projects that we do, where we try to do little POCs to say whether these things make sense or not, where it could be a technology innovation, it could be a business model innovation, where we are constantly looking at what could be the next set of things which would delight my customers, which is relevance to my organizations, which all kind of get into your big opportunity backlog. So a lot of these things which I talked about are actually bottoms up, right? Where we are constantly reaching out to our stakeholders and we are trying to build into our product. But then there is this whole annual exercise that we do, wherein we have this company strategy, we have the organizational vision, that cascade, which is the top down, which cascades down to become your product vision and your product strategy. Right now, in order to do that, those are again the aspects that comes into your opportunity backlog. If we say that we are going to become mobile first, we are going to migrate to cloud, we are going to be adopting this new blockchain technology. So your opportunity backlog is basically nothing but cascades of what is coming from your organizational strategy, or what I call as the top down to the bottom up. And then there is, of course, a whole cycle of evaluation and assessment, and the market opportunity goes there, based on which we kind of plan and we kind of continue to refine our opportunity backlog, and we come up with a product roadmap, right? And a product roadmap is the one which kind of translates and looking at all the parameters, assessment criteria that we have, where when we start, it is a representation of our product strategy in terms of how are we planning to achieve that strategy, what are our goals, and how do we plan to attain there. So this is something, a product roadmap is I would say a thematic or a schematic representation for over a timeline, where we talk about these are the various themes, these are the various set of things that we plan to do, and this is how we plan to achieve our product strategy. And this is something that has to be shared with your investors. Imagine a lot of time, if there is a strong product roadmap, is where we see the stocks going up, versus if we have revised numbers, changed roadmaps, where we see. So there is a variety of stakeholders. There is a engineering version of it. There is sometimes an investor version of it. Sometimes there is a version that you need to share with your salespeople, that the sales folks will embed as part of their sales collateral and take it to the customers to say, hey, this is what coming as part of our product roadmap in the next 6 months time to get the customers excited, right? So there's a variety of version. And this is this product roadmap that eventually gets translated as part of your development backlog. Your development backlog is what I call as the curated or the prioritized list, which for every sprint planning, the product manager and the engineers are kind of constantly looking at it, that, okay, these are the things that we want to develop as part of the next 2 sprints. These are the epics that we are going to be working on. And then you kind of have this prioritized list, and you get into the whole product design and product development aspects of things, where your engineers, your designers come together and you start, you kind of build it. And then you, of course, have the whole launch aspect, right? So design and development is another, planning and execution is another area where there is a lot of overlap that happens. And then there is the whole launch, wherein everything around why we are doing, what is the value proposition, how do we want to position it, and what is the kind of enablement or release plan that is needed in order to get the product to the customer and get them to use it, are things that kind of culminate here. Now, when we are trying to do these variety of these things, there is tons of artifacts that I talked about in the previous slides that gets created, right? And there are multiple ways still in many organizations. For example, if I have to talk, Excel still remains as like that one place where different teams probably have different tabs, different sheets, and they continue to add their ideas over there, from which it kind of all flows into, let's say, one mega sheet in terms of the opportunity backlog, right? So to make sure that the initial requirements that came in are also kind of mapping up to your development acceptance criteria and stuff like that. There is this, probably you have a whole metrics where you have your user acceptance criteria, stories and stuff like that to do the complete mapping. So all I'm trying to say is that at this point of time, you may find that there is a lot of overlap on the tools that you are probably using in this phase to this phase. For example, if you're doing any initial product discoveries where you are kind of talking to the customers, trying to build in the initial hypothesis which you are trying to validate, then there is definitely a lot of those artifacts which you're probably using a Figma or a Miro, which you probably go back and start using this here. There is a lot of this thing that you're during the brainstorming that you're using here kind of gets translated in terms of your sheet, which is being used in development backlog, right? So the point that I'm trying to make here is that depending upon the kind of product that you are in, it is not necessary that a tool which I use probably during my discovery phase is not something that is not used, let's say, during the design and development. There is always an overlap that happens. For example, in some organizations, Jira is not only used for, let's say, product execution, but is also used to track customer support issues. Versus in some other organizations, they may have like a ServiceNow, which is used for customer tracking, versus they might be using, let's say, a very different tool for product roadmap. So there is definitely a possibility that there is a huge overlap you see. And in certain organizations, let's say you have certain startups where they are really, really lean in terms of the funding. So they want to be very, prudent about where they spend their money. Their entire roadmap is probably just done over a Google Suite, or probably some of the other products which are available free of cost. So the choice of the tool depends on a lot of these variety, and you will be able to see probably a lot of overlap, right? So that's the main aspect that I wanted to focus here. All right, so this is just to take a lighter note on this. And, typically if somebody has taken over a new product, and usually you are welcomed with a huge backlog, probably handed over a Excel sheet, and that Excel sheet might have backlog items running into hundreds, right? So figure it out over there. Or I remember one of the products when I took over, the entire product backlog was thankfully not in Excel, it was in Jira, but I was looking at something at the tune of 400 plus items to figure out, okay, we have tagged them, but figure out which one of them should probably go into release 1 versus the next release, right? So you always have it. And of course, there is, if we are not very prudent about sharing the content on time, sharing the data points on time, there could be always a mountain of work which is not completed, right? So these are just some lighter notes. The other important aspect before we jump into these numbers, one of the things which I want to call out is that these tools that we talk about, these are just enablers, right? These are not going to the work of a product managers. Rather, these just help us to be more effective and get the work done or the outcome that we are looking at. These tools are not, these are just enablers for getting our work done as great product managers. All right. So assuming that many of you are aspiring product managers, I assume that all of you are aware of that, how typical product life cycle stages looks like. I covered quite a few of them in the last slide, but I will probably talk about when you are in the initial phase where I was talking about this whole opportunity product backlog, right? This is a time when you probably want to, you are talking extensively to your sales team, you're talking extensively to your leadership, you're extensively talking to your peers in order to figure out what should be that next technology innovation, engineering, sales, customer support, customers themselves, in order to get all kind of qualitative and quantitative data. So if you remember, I was talking both about the bottoms up and I was talking about the top down. So how do I start to effectively brainstorm and make sure that all these data points which I'm gathered are kind of done? Of course, in the last 2 years, we all have gone from offline to majorly online. During the times when the days were more offline, I would usually get into a meeting room. We would extensively use whiteboards. We would extensively sit next to our customers, observe them. Of course, that is still non-negotiable. We should continue to do that. But I think in the last 2.5 years, I see the evolution of online tools that helps us to recreate a whiteboarding or doing a brainstorming effectively as we would do in a offline mode, sitting together in a room, has been able to replicate to a great extent. And of course, there are tools like Figma, Miro, Mural, which basically helps you very, very effectively to be able to brainstorm, where people are able to create their own sticky notes. You are able to do affinity diagrams so that you are able to bucketize these things. You are able to do a lot of, jamming to say that how should we do brainstorming, how do we build the most effective solution for the problem statements that we have identified. Mind map is like, a great tool which is kind of available in all of these tools, which helps you to break your problem into multiple levels. User journey, again, when you observe your customers and you really want to see that, okay, somebody is doing their taxes, how do they go about doing it? They log into the site, what are the kind of documents that they need? So there is a complete user journey. There are brilliant templates which are available in these tools, which helps you to do that beautifully. When you think about personas, right? I think by default in the initial stages, when you start thinking about persona, you only think about demographics. But ideally, when you're trying to solve a pain point for a customer, don't only look at their demographics, you look at their emotional states, you look at their social details, you look at what are some of the related jobs that they are trying to get done. So it's a kind of a thing. And the user personas template, which are available by some of these tools, are brilliant. They have placeholders for each one of them, which makes sure that when you are trying to break down the details of your customers, you are actually looking at things at holistically, right? So I highly recommend to look at these tools in order to be able to leverage. And of course, what I have listed down on the right is probably just a tip in the iceberg. Most of the basic offerings that you need, I think, are available for free. But then if definitely there are very specific tools that you need, then I think there is a licensed version for these tools. So I would highly recommend, especially in a very remote setup, if you are working for an organization which is really small, completely remote, these tools are very, very effective. Now, moving slightly to a different kind of, in the discovery phase, one of the things that we do is that we do a lot of interviews with our customers. We do a lot of qualitative collection of data. This could be usability tests. This could be just collecting some, I would say, opinions or perspectives from the customers when we are probably not sitting next to our customers. Now, in this context, most of us would have run surveys and polls with our customers at some point of time. Now, imagine the amount of data that is coming with that surveys. You really need to have a good handle of how do you make the most, some of the brilliant insights out of those data points that you've collected from your customers. And here, tools like, of course, Google Form is probably, we use it from the most simplest to probably some of the more demanding, complex requirement or the pain points that we are solving for our customers. But I have extensively also used Survey Monkeys and Qualtrics, which does a very good job in terms of providing some, out of the box reporting templates, dashboards that would help you to slice and dice your data in different ways. And especially surveys are a great way to capture your qualitative data, right? So I would highly recommend to look at some of these tools. And of course, I'm sure there are many more brilliant tools which are available, for the customer discovery. But these are some of them, most of them which I have used, and I have also kind of heard back from some of the product leaders out there in the industry who extensively use it. All right, probably I can take a pause and maybe I can take like one question over here. If somebody has a question, please feel free to unmute and have the question.
Hi, Malthi.
Hey, hi.
It's Kailash here. I'm from Coimbatore. And first of all, thank you for organizing this idea regarding the product management tools. So actually, I'm pursuing my actually I'm working in Wipro now as a project engineer. But I have a good posture in UI and UX designing. I have an idea in pursuing UI and UX designing. So now for that, I'm looking for a course which is conducted in a growth school. Okay, so how the UI UX designing is totally helpful for product management things.
Okay, I think just give me a minute because that is something that I'm addressing in the next slide.
Then one more thing. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The other thing is, I think you get to know about Triple IT Hyderabad is launching. Actually, they already launched PDM course, which is Product Designing and Management, which
Okay.
is launched on June 22.
Okay.
So, but do you have any idea about how's that organized like that?
No, sorry, I'm not connected to that. So I was not aware of that course. So sorry, I'm not the right person.
Okay, Malti. Thank you. That's it. Yeah.
Sure.
Have a good.
Sure. Thank you.
Hello, Malthi. This is Abhijit here. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, Abhijit, please go
Yeah.
ahead.
Just a question on this slide, actually. There are so many different products that are available, and I see there is specific journey that will be there. So for mind map, user journey, a different tasks to perform. What would be your recommendation for somebody who's transitioning into product management, and maybe one tool or two or three tools that you would recommend specifically for, say, mind map or personas, that based on your experience you would recommend to just get on and start learning, or maybe just have a look at it? Because there are so many tools in the market. Somewhere somebody has to start somewhere, right? So from that perspective, what would you recommend?
See, most of these tools, especially the one which I've called out on mind map user journeys, both Figma, Miro, and Mural have actually, there is a lot of overlap and capabilities for these products. Personally, I have used Figma and Miro extensively. So I think that could be a good place for somebody to get started. And they definitely offer these as a majority of things that you can explore and play around with as free subscriptions. So that's a good place to start.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Abhijit. So I think I'll go forward. Sorry, given that we have limited time, I would like to take not more than one or two questions. So if you still have questions, we'll probably take it towards the end of the session. All right. Then we talked about, customer discovery is one area where we kind of gather, we do pretty much, market research. Of course, a lot of things which I talked about was around user research information, but a typical product initial phase or the discovery phase that I would call is when you are actually doing a competitive analysis, you are doing a market research, you are doing user research, and you basically have all the initial uh, uh, data which says that, okay, how do you want to go further? What exactly is the pain point? You kind of further refine your problem statements, and then okay, now I need to start doing into solutioning phase, right? And that is again in an area where as part of your discovery, you kind of start really going broad that how do I solve my problem? And then you start identifying that, okay, let's say one way of doing it is that in terms of complexity, simple to complex, what is some of the solutions which are possible, which are feasible? So let's say you kind of, as part of the discovery, you kind of did your refining your problem statement, you kind of identified maybe top 2 or 3 solutions, which could be proper alternates. Now, the next thing that you want to do is that, is there a way for me to, how many of you have read about this book called The Lean Startup? Has anybody read this book, Lean Startup?
Yes, Malthi.
Yeah. So Lean Startup is basically what it says is that how do you continue to, discover your problem, customers' problem statements, how quickly can you build a solution and continue to keep the customer in the loop. At any point of time, customer is in the center of the things. You have, and then you keep going back and checking with your customer if this is something that they would do. So that's especially given all the startups, they are kind of constrained with the resources. So they want to ideate, build something, learn from it, and validate it with their customers. Now, that is the time when you are looking to translate your initial thoughts or solutioning in terms of experience, right? Now, this is something that can be done as, some very quick wireframes, what we call, it could be, it could be as simple as just drawing it on a paper, wherein let's say you're building a new product and you want to figure out that, okay, I know how the user journey will look like. I will probably have a login page. In the login page, these are the set of things I will ask. After the login page, when the customer is getting onboarded, these are the additional set of questions that I will ask. So this is how the customer is going to get onboarded, right? So how do you give a to that. So there are definitely a variety of ways you can do it. You can give it to your customers or whoever are your people who can, folks who can get it validated. It could be a very, very rough prototypes. It could be very basic wireframes. It could be something what we call as very low fidelity designs. That means I am making a mobile app for you. So instead of drawing it on the paper, I'm using an app which will help it to simulate and show a very basic rudimentary design, let's say within the mobile framework. Or I'm making a very high fidelity design. Okay, what do you mean by high fidelity design? That means the resolution is really good. I know exactly what are the kind of icons I'm going to use. I know exactly what are the kind of font size, colors, and probably the next level of this is that I am able to make clickable prototypes. That means the minute you, I ask you to do I give you a mobile phone, or probably I give you a mobile simulator. I know that if you click on forgot password, it will take you to another page where you are able to do it. That means you are able to simulate an entire experience, right? So that is what we do, where we kind of, are able to provide these designs to our customers. Of course, imagine if it is a physical product, and if you have to do, then probably if you guys are, let's say, buying a house, right? What happens when you go to the builder space? They will usually have a toy setup of how the buildings are going to look like, how the floor plan is going to look like. So they basically have a prototype for that, right? So just imagine doing the same thing using a bunch of these tools. And these could vary from being very rudimentary, very basic wireframes to really very sophisticated, high fidelity designs, which are even clickables, and which basically gives you an end-to-end, very close to experience how the actual product would look like. But still, at the same time, there is probably no actual code that is happening. So that is one space where it is used. Other is that imagine today in your product, you do not offer, let's say, payments capability, but you're really keen to learn if your customers would actually use a payment capability. Are the customers really open to do a payments? So what I'm calling about is learning from your customers in the product using experimentation. How many of you understand what is an experimentation? How many of you understand? All of you understand what is an experimentation? In product experimentation, for example?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Like, for example, A/B testing and all, right?
Correct, exactly. So that means you have a hypothesis, you are trying to figure out, if I offer this feature, will my customer do it? For example, a lot of these, I think in one of the things I remember, Tesla, when they launched their marketing campaign, I think they said that we would like to understand how many of you would do this. They had not determined what was their right pricing to offer to the customers. So they said, if you would like to buy this, just you need to pay $100 over here. And actually, that gave them an idea that how many of the customers are even interested in the latest version of the new Tesla that they are about to go to launch, right? So there could be a lot of these experimentations that you would like to do that can be done using these tools. So I have extensively, of course, I come from a very early generation of product management. So I don't think Figmas and the Miros were available up to a few years back. So when I started my journey, I have extensively used a lot of paper prototypes. I have used those dot notebooks where I could draw as many squares I wanted. But yes, Balsamic is a tool which I have very, very extensively used. Sketch is something which a lot of Mac users would kind of vouch for, because it helps them to create really high fidelity design very close to what they are looking to build. InVision is another designer favorite, along with Adobe XD, which allows you to create a lot of these design. Very recently, I've started using Figma quite extensively for my new product developments, new designs, new experiments that we are looking. So basically, how does this help? These basically helps you to create these mock-ups, take it to your customers, whether it is in product, and do these usability tests and get feedback on your designs as quickly as possible. Now, as a product manager, how much of a design should I really know? Well, designers are, one set of stakeholders or one set of function with whom, especially if you are working on a front end product. Of course, if you look at any product life cycle, there are usually the front end part of it. There will be platform side of things. There will be marketplace. But think of it everything from a customer centricity perspective, right? When you think of a customer centricity perspective, there are always user journeys, there are always customer touch points where you will have. So this kind of accessible tools, which does not require you to be a designer yourselves, but actually are using a tool like Canva. Canva is another tool which is kind of very, very useful, along with Figma and a bunch of other these tools, helps you to be able to translate your thoughts into real design that you can share and further brainstorm and further refine along with your design team. So I definitely think aesthetics or elements or knowledge of product design is a very important skill for a product manager to have. With that, I'll take a pause here, and probably I can take one question if there is any. So, Kailash, I'm hoping that that the question that you had, I was able to answer. How much of a design should a product manager know? The answer would be very similar. If you're developing a software product manager, as much as you need to have a flair for technology, similarly, you need to have a flair for design as well.
Thank you, Malthi. Yeah, I'm hoping for that.
Sure. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Malthi, one question I have. So, like, for example, if a resume comes to you when they're in, these tools have been mentioned. So, what is your expectation in an interview a person should know for a person who does not have any product experience prior to this? So, what do you expect? What kind of experience a person should have for a role of product manager?
Okay. See, I think this goes beyond these tools, right? And somebody who's brand new into product management, one of the very important criteria that I look at is that how motivated or how self-driven that person is. And if usually that person is self-driven, in my conversation with that person, it goes beyond what the current day job looks for them. What are the kind of efforts that that person has put to learn product management? What are the kind of products that they have done? What are the kind of stretch projects that they have done? And believe me, if any aspiring product manager, if they have put an effort to build some portfolios, build some products, they would have definitely used one or the other of these products while doing discoveries, while doing designs. So I would expect that they should be familiar with it. Because product management is a very, very, the person needs to be very self-motivated. So I look beyond that, those people who would have gone beyond their calling in terms of their day job in order to be able to achieve this, to make the transition.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So the next one, this is again a very, very important one, and probably, especially somebody who's an aspiring product manager, unless of course you're working in a very small organization where you as a product manager, you are still brand new, or let's say maybe just 1 year or 1.5 years into the product, but you might be involved in a lot of 0 to 1 kind of products, the likelihood. But let's say when you come to a slightly bigger organization, a large enterprise organization, the kind of one where I have worked, typically when we have an APM or we have we have an entry level PM, usually we would want them to kind of understand the nuances of the stakeholders. What does it take to build a product? What does it take to maintain a product, right? Because the research part and the designing part, the research part is one part of it and synthesizing, but delivering a plan is a very, very important skill for a product manager to be able to deliver it on quality, deliver what was the requirement initially chalked out versus what you are delivering. And this whole planning and execution aspects requires a lot of iterations, right? Because you are constantly, I would say, double clicking on the requirements. You are constantly double clicking on your acceptance criteria. You are working with a variety of stakeholders, with your design, with your engineering, with your QA, with your customer support. You're constantly doing a prioritization. So usually when I hire new PMs, I usually try to put them into at least one initiative where they get a flavor of what does it take to build the product, right? I mean, I probably give you the initial set of details that are needed to get this done, but how deeply can you go in order to understand the customer, in order to build this the way it was anticipated and to be able to launch it. So in that context, definitely there are a variety of artifacts created. There is a PRD created. There is a product roadmap created. There are epics created. There are user stories created. There is a whole project plan which is created. There is aspects of constantly testing. So there is a whole test plan which is created. One of the key aspects during this stage is constant prioritization. Imagine you are working on a big initiative, but then there is a P0 escalation that happens because of a bug which got recently uncovered, right? That means you probably need to push back on your big initiative and make sure that this issue, which is probably impact, let's say 5% of your customers, needs to be taken care of. So that means there is a lot of it's probably something like driving in India, where you need to look at all the plans and you need to respond based on where the issue is coming from. So in this context, what I'm trying to say is that being on top of things, making sure that smaller issues are not slipping through the cracks, and at the same time, anything and everything that you are doing is kind of aligned to your overall objectives, and you are constantly measuring it, you are reflecting on it. And at the same time, you as a product manager are prioritizing your relationships with your your stakeholders, because one of the issues with product management is that none of these roles that we have are actually reporting into us, right? So it is really very important that you are able to influence without authority. That means data is a very, very important lever. Building a good rapport, continue to have that trust and credibility with your stakeholders is an important aspect. So while you're doing a lot of those things, softer aspect of things, what could be some of the tools which will help you to be on top of that? And in my own personal experience, the entire Microsoft suite, Excel, PPTs, they have been like my lifesaver. Jira is something which I have extensively used in my this thing. Then of late, there are a bunch of these new tools like Roadmonk. As I talked about, there are a variety of stakeholders that you have, and your roadmap needs to be represented based on what are they interested in, what is the messaging that you want to send to them, and what, for example, your salesperson needs to share the very exciting version of your product roadmaps that probably reflects more around customer benefits that your customers can immediately gather. So these are some of the products that I understand, like Zeta and Product Board, which lets you do what I'm called out here to be very, very effectively and used in the product, right? Especially Roadmonk and Money.com and Product Plan, I think are more helps you to build various, they comes with a variety of templates on your product roadmap. And just like Jira, I think Zeta and Product Board helps you to create variety of these tickets, to be able to group them, to be able to create tasks, which has all your acceptance criteria, details, a bunch of these things. All right, so I'll take a pause here and see if there are any questions. I can take only one question. So it looks like there's no question here. So let me go on to the next one.
Now, one second, Malthi. I'm sorry. It's just a little question. So these things are explained, right? So is there a totally related to Scrum Master?
Yeah, I mean, see, okay. Now, what are the things that I'm talking? See, there are companies which, I mean, Agile has been the way we all, especially most of the software product companies have moved away from waterfall and have moved into Agile, right? When you talk about Agile, there are a lot of different facets to it, where some companies follow the Kanban board, they follow Scrum. Scrum is the most common. Then there are Safe Agile. So that is the process that we follow. And yes, all these products, especially the one which allows you to do that, the idea is that how do you kind of break your artifacts that you need to create into that smallest granular level, which will help you to navigate through that process. To answer your question, yes. Since these tools allow you to break down your artifacts or deliverables into the smallest granular items, they kind of align with the agile methodology or the Scrum methodology.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
Malthi, sorry for you. One more question. So here I can see a lot of tools for the project roadmap and other stuff, right? As you showed me in the last slide. So which is the best one to begin with at the initial phase as a self-learner?
I think some of them do come up with the free version. Even for example, Jira comes with a free version. So I would suggest probably you should just pick up any one of them, because, for example, Jira, Product Plan, Product Board, Monday.com, Roadmonk, I think, and AHA, all of them come with a freemium version of it. So maybe you can, I think, pick up any one of them and get started. But to a great extent, which is the one that organization uses, I think you need to kind of align in whenever you start your product management role, whether in the current organization or in the new organization. And I think if you are kind of familiar to any one of them, switching over to any new product tool should not be a big deal. All right, now, variety of things that I talked about. A lot of times we need, just to maintain our own sanity, and probably I would say collaboration across. There could be tools that you probably cannot share with somebody, let's say outside the organization, which could be your partners, which could be your distributors or stuff like that. And there could be, let's say, documents which you need to constantly collaborate and work further on that. So in that context, of course, whether you talk about Google Docs or Confluence, for example, Confluence along with Jira is something that I have extensively used, and it is really easy to integrate your Jira tickets into your Confluence pages where you are kind of putting together your PRDs. See, gone were the days when I used to have one single document where I used to have the entire PRD. These days, what we have is probably an epic, and for every epic, I usually have I have a user story in which I basically capture the behavior of the feature expectations that I have. So I have used extensively all three of them, and they are definitely great tools to summarize and even consolidate a lot of different artifacts that you have in one place. The next one, again, I remember when I started my first product, which was enterprise product used by about 1,500 customers. We had customer advisory group, and I would have this monthly meeting. I was driving these monthly meetings, and I would know pretty much qualitatively what every customer is talking about it, and quantitatively based on the kind of customer issues that we would get. So at that point of time, product instrumentation, and I'm talking almost like 14 years back, was not a big deal. But now in the last, I would say, decade or so, when we have this whole new gamut of apps on mobile, on SaaS applications, it is, and we are talking about millions and lakhs and thousands of customers, right? So how do I make sure that how my product is being used? How do I make sure that I understand how my customers are using, what features my customers are using? How do I learn more about my customers? How do I slice and dice the huge amount of data that I'm collecting from my customers to understand what is the next feature I should release, or what is the gap which probably nobody is looking at? And or even, let's say I released this product and this product is not gaining the kind of traction that I had anticipated. How should I go about doing it, right? So there are always tons and tons of questions that we have. And we have more and more of our B2B products and B2C products going on to the cloud, becoming SaaS applications. So product analytics is no more a luxury. It is a necessity now, which every product manager needs to have, right? And especially, as I said earlier, we are a clan who have to influence without authority. That means data is our best friend. So that part, and imagine if you are working in a product like a payments platform product, wherein if your product is going to take, let's say, more than 2 seconds to do a payment, or if your product is constantly going to say, hey, the server is busy, you are going to lose customers like a big leaky bucket. So performance is like super important. There could be no latency. There has to be a high availability. So that is why it is really important to in order to learn about our customers, our products, to make those critical decisions, to know about product analytics. So everything around your web analytics is something that comes from Google Analytics versus everything that you want to do. I mean, reporting based on the data that you have. Tableau is a brilliant tool. Of course, now we have a lot of these, libraries with R and Python, which helps you to build some really quick dashboards. But when you look at products like Mixpanel, Amplitude, Clever Tabs, they help you to do some brilliant work on sentiment analysis, behavioral analytics, market segmentation, understand how the product is being used, right? Power BI is again a very strong tool based on the data that you have captured from your customers. I really haven't used Heat, Pendo, and Adobe Analytics. But yes, I think at least the top 5 that I talk about, they are kind of a very easy to configure. This is my understanding. Again, happy to learn if there are other folks in the this thing here who have used these other products. But what I'm trying to say is that these product kind of takes care of a lot of common questions that a product managers would have in terms of their understanding their users, usage behavior of the product, how the conversions are looking like, how your activations are looking like, and easy to install, very highly configurable, very lot of ready to use powerful dashboards and configuration engine which is available, which helps you to start learning about your customers and users as quickly as possible. Anybody in the audience who probably have used other products, or especially products like Heat, Pendo, and Adobe Analytics, and want to add the additional perspective here?
There's a Cognos tool for analysis.
Okay.
And I've used Power BI, Malthi, because my working project is MS Dynamics 365 CRM. So for that, we have created the dashboard with the help of Power BI.
Okay. How do you spell it?
Sorry?
Power BI. Okay. All right.
Power BI, yeah.
Okay. All right. Yep. So those are some examples. And again, when you're kind of learning about your users, we are in an era of, where we are kind of looking at how can I move away from sales-led growth to a product-led growth, right? So that means, especially imagine you're talking about e-commerce, or you're talking about a lot of these SaaS products, wherein there is a lot of, I would say, focus in terms of that, how can my product create that loop with the customers, or we create the hooks, like whether, I think I really don't even need to say loops, like, Instagrams and some of those social things, network products have done some brilliant job over there. So how do I figure out what kind of, marketing, in-product marketing, how do I continue to engage my users with the variety of notifications, gamifications, how do I make it extremely personalized? So those are capabilities which are brilliantly offered by some of these out-of-the-box tools like WebEngage and MoEngage. Again, they come very, very highly recommended. Okay, the other aspect, which probably I haven't talked about enough, is that everything else that we talked about, right? It is kind of very critical during the time of product development, customer discovery, product design. But imagine once you are kind of ready to launch your product, pretty much people will ask, can you share a demo link for the product? Can you share some screenshots for the product? Do you have like a video that you can share what your product does? And I have, or even imagine training material that you want to create in order to enable your sales guys, enable your customer support guys. So go-to-market sales enablement is a big chunk within a product manager, because if you would educate, make your these folks aware only then a customer will have a brilliant end-to-end customer experience, from the time they purchase the product to the post sales and continue to use the product. So that is where some of these products like Snagit and Camtasia and Sauce, they are kind of very, I have personally used Captivate, Camtasia and Snagit a lot of times to create enablement for my go-to-market teams, enable our account managers to be able to build some great demos, get feedbacks from our customers. A lot of times the customers would also create these videos to say, hey, this is where we see things are not working, and send this information to her. And of course, to create a lot of content for your content marketing or put in for FAQs and stuff like that. So that is, I think, the last one. Okay, the last one, which I wanted to also, I know we are kind of getting close, almost over the time. But yes, this is now an era of no-code tools. That how do I build things which can, be the fastest, helps me to get as close an experience from the customers, get their feedback, and even launch my MVPs. There was a time when probably, I don't know how many of you heard about this Dropbox MVP or the Zappos MVP, where they just created a static web page, or they created just a video in order to understand if the customers would really use it. So today, this whole no code or low code landscape allows you to do a variety of things, create your websites in no time, create your mobile apps in no time, automate a lot of different processes that you would have using, especially Zapier is put in your own conditions. Again, for surveys and stuff like that, create your forms. So from a productivity perspective and to quickly help us validate our hypothesis, these are some brilliant tools. I think this is the last slide, that I had, and probably happy to take one or two questions.
So Malthi, this is not related to the tool, this is related to the PayPal. Okay. So I wanted to just understand, see, right now I've heard that there has been a lot of cost cutting going on in PayPal as of now. And, there are a lot of staff that has been, reshuffled and even asked to leave. So like, is it a right time to join PayPal, or should I try to postpone? Because I wanted to join PayPal as a company. I have also shared it in my priority list. But now that I'm hearing this, I'm a little concerned.
Okay. See, I'm definitely not the right person. I do not work with #1 with PayPal anymore. But the only thing I would say is that it's a great organization, a very, very employee centric organization. But then it is your personal decision to say that how do you want to take it, and I'm not authorized, or I'm not the right person to even comment how your decision. So, but yeah, it's definitely a great company to work with.
Sure, definitely, yeah.
Sure. Are there any more questions in context of these things? And was this useful at all? Do you guys have a bunch of other tools which did not figure in here?
Hi, Malthi. Yeah. So, like, how deep do we need to learn product analytics? Like, there are similar other roles like data analyst and everything, right? So, like, how deep do we need to understand as a product manager, like these analytics? Like, what type of analytics do we need to do, and everything? Yeah.
Okay, see, that also depends upon that what is the kind of instrumentation or what is the kind of analytics setup an organization has. But typically, product analyst role is kind of very aligned in terms of the objectives, or let's say the learnings that a product management team basically have as part of alignment of their product roadmap. So it kind of works in tandem of both. And in terms of what is the tech stack that they have and what is the kind of needs that they have, it is kind of aligned to that.
Okay.
Yep.
Malthi, generally, how many tools do you recommend learning for each of the domain, like for product analytics, for product design strategy and all that? Because suppose if I've learned a Jira or Confluence for one company and the company is looking for some other tools, So how easy is it for me to switch and upgrade myself into multiple tools?
See, I mean, as a product manager, I think I'll tell you one thing: you will never cease to learn. There will always be something to learn. So I would say you need to have at least one tool in each of the sections that I talked about. And once you kind of know the fundamentals of how things work, how the needs are, switching to a new tool. And of course, it happens, right? Every new organization that you would go in will have their own frameworks, will have their own set of preferred tools, licensed tools, and these things. So, but once you know how things work in terms of the expectations of what broadly the tool does, I think it should not take much time to learn new tools. And there are always ramp up times for any tools or any skills. So I think that is very well understood in any organizations for you to ramp up.
Okay.
All right. So I think with that, we can end the session then if there are no more questions, and I know we are kind of above the time. Hey, Talvinder, good to see you.
Hi, Malthi. Good to see you as well. Thank you so much for taking the session, taking the time. And I know the work that you have put in to actually collate all of these tools. For those who are new to this field or people even who are experienced to some extent, honestly, most of the companies will just talk about one or two products. And usually the product department is the last one which gets to buy any other tools. Because the only tools that you typically get access to is a Google Sheet or something similar. And you're expected to perform whatever you have to perform on a Google Sheet. Of course, in the last couple of years, the trend is changing because the value of a good product manager or the time of a good product manager is realized. Again, there is no dearth of products, and like something that I've been talking about. So Sketch was the it product in 2016-17. Like that's the product that everybody was supposed to use. And if you're using Photoshop, you're like a dinosaur for design. 2-3 years down the line, Sketch stayed where it was, and Figma came in. Then you had Adobe's, what is the product? Adobe
XD.
XD came in. XD became fairly popular, and then the whole bunch of other vector products came out. Right now, it's Figma. Trust me, 3 years down the line, it will be something else.
Yeah.
So if there's one takeaway that you have to keep in mind from all of these tool discussion, because a lot of you actually talk to me as well as about ye bhi tool chahiye, wo bhi tool chahiye, ye bhi seekhna hai, wo bhi seekhna hai. Because there's so many things to do. Trust me, tools will come and go, but the fundamentals and the foundation doesn't go. So event-based analytics, if you understand that, it doesn't matter whether you use Mixpanel or you use Google Analytics event goal system or Post-Hog or something else, or Amplitude for that matter. The concept remains the very same in all of the tools, right? So please, like apart from learning the tool, like pick up any tool to actually learn the fundamentals. But if you learn the fundamentals foundation, then you are good. But trust me, 3 years down the line, products will change. Mixpanel is one of those rare products which have stayed for so long. I think it launched in 2009, and it took the world about 5 years to realize what event-based analytics is. And in the last 5 years, of course, event-based analytics has become the main thing. Same goes for, what was the product name? I'm forgetting. Jira, right? Now, so many companies don't use Jira, but the fundamentals of Jira is the same, which is copied across so many different products, right? So if you understand Jira, you're good. You'll be able to see the concepts in everywhere else as well. So that was just my 2 cents about tools. Like you will see so many tools and you will overwhelm yourself that itna sab kaise seekhenge. Not needed. If you learn the fundamentals, you're good.
Yeah.
Just pick one
tool. Anyone. Just pick up one. And again, just reiterating one of the things that I slide and what Talvinder also said, these are just mediums to get your work done, right? These are eventually the foundations remains the same. And I mean, these are just getting your ways of work getting done, right? But this is the core of product management fundamentals does not really change anything.
Correct. And knowing, especially, I think that if there are two things that you should be learning, then learn Google Analytics or Mixpanel, one of the analytics tool and one of the design tools.
Yeah.
Design tools largely for mockups, not because you are going to actually create the designs unless you really, really enjoy it. Even in that case, don't do it.
Make the life of your designers easy for them to understand the concept that you have in mind, and to understand even how the various concepts of design impact your customers' decision making. I think from that perspective, it is good to have understanding of design. And I think Talvinder said it well. At least just know Google Analytics. And I think most of the product analysts, when you know these event-based things, wherein that is the time when you create your logs and stuff like that based on the way the instrumentation has been manifested in your systems, in your servers.
Right. So I hope this was very, very useful. It was for me. It was a good refresher for me. Haan, ye sab bhi hota hai. Thank you so much, Malthi, for the entire time taken today and earlier to actually compile all of these tools. And it has been, every session of yours is always fun. And I'm glad that I was here. Thank you everyone for attending on a Saturday. Have a good day, have a good weekend.
Thank you, Talvinder. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Malthi, thanks so much.